But instead,
in our last term, we built schools, upgraded health facilities, improved roads, and made life better for thousands of St. Lucians. We didn't just promise, we delivered. And now we're ready to finish what we started. Our next step is bold, but necessary. When elected, the United Workers' Party will introduce national health insurance so every St. Lucian can access quality health care no matter their socio-economic background. Because your health should never depend on your bank account. Let's continue the work. Let's secure your future. Vote UWP for a healthier, stronger St. Lucia.
Philip J. Pierre promised to protect St. Lucia, but instead he sold us out. He gave away Port Castries and the Soufrière waterfront to a foreign company, GPH, for 40 years. Over 1 billion EC dollars ripped from SLASPA, a St. Lucian institution owned and managed by us. Then he handed 4 billion EC of our citizenship by investment money to Galaxy, a Chinese company, for a hotel and a few roads that won't cost more than 500 million EC. Where's the rest of the money? Next, 200 million EC to a company labeled an International Criminal Organization, BMAX, to build just 66 low-income houses. That's $3 million per house. Now, Philip J. Pierre and Wayne Girard are creating a sovereign wealth fund where hundreds of millions of our dollars will be placed under the control of foreign businessmen handpicked by the minister. No transparency, no accountability, no St. Lucian oversight. While St. Lucians can't find jobs, while families can't make ends meet, Pierre gives away our money, our assets, and our future to foreigners. Pierre, Pabo.
They say unemployment is down, but what they're not telling you is how they're counting. In 2022, the Philip J. Pierre government changed the way unemployment is calculated. Now, if you haven't had a job in 3 months, they stop counting you altogether. Even worse, if you've received a one-time grant from the youth economy, you're certainly considered employed, even if you never started a business. Meanwhile, the real numbers tell a different story. Starfish and Mystic hotels closed. That's 1,000 jobs gone. Morgan Bay Resort shut down for renovations for nearly 2 years. Another 400 jobs erased. And yet, they claim things are better. Unemployment hasn't gone down. They've just changed the rules to hide the truth. Pierre, Pabo.
Every St. Lucian deserves a safe, decent place to call home. But for too many, that dream feels out of reach. That's why a UWP government will launch a bold, affordable housing initiative. Because housing is not a luxury, it's a right. We'll use unused crown lands in every constituency, and when needed, purchase private lands to expand opportunities. We'll offer accessible financing so young people and low-income families can become proud homeowners. We'll partner with developers and ensure transparency, giving priority to first-time homeowners, young professionals, and those who need it most. Vote UWP. Let's build homes, let's build futures, let's build a stronger St. Lucia together.
Under the SLP, your St. Lucian passport now lasts only 5 years, cut in half what it used to. We've doubled the cost and doubled the hassle. Families, students, business people, travelers, everyone now pays the price for a decision that makes no sense. The United Workers' Party believes in making life easier, not harder. When elected, the UWP will restore your passport validity to 10 years because your time and money matter. Convenience, common sense, care for the people. Vote UWP. We'll bring back the 10-year passport. We'll also bring back good governance.
I want to challenge them. Who has done
going to stay healthy, like gym, healthy eating, and safety and security could be harder to get because people ain't have money.
Partner,
if them people have enough money, they go have leftover food for us to eat. The bins go be empty. Wow!
Things real happening to them, Lucianzi. Look out for us again soon. We go show you all more.
St. Lucia is at a crossroads. Mismanagement, incompetence, and rising crime under the Philip J. Pierre administration have left us all struggling. But under Alan Chastanet's leadership, our country flourished. Taxes were lowered, 17 health centers were upgraded, the OKE hospital opened, over $12 million in hospital bills were wiped clean, lifting a burden off of our people. Construction of the state-of-the-art St. Jude Hospital began. The forensic lab was reopened. Homicides were 25% lower than they are today. New schools were built, 30% of our roads rehabilitated, and sports facilities across the country received major upgrades, empowering our youth. He successfully led us through the COVID-19 pandemic, winning global recognition for St. Lucia's top care management. Alan Chastanet, strong leadership to save our St. Lucia.
Life in St. Lucia has become unbearable. Every day, we feel the crushing weight of a government that's out of touch with the struggles of its people. They've collected millions in taxes on fuel, leaving us paying more for gasoline, cooking gas, kerosene, and diesel. And as if that wasn't enough, the Health and Security Levy has made everything more expensive, adding an additional 2.5% to the cost of goods and services. Bus fares have gone up, bread costs more, electricity, water, food, internet, even your mobile credit, it all costs more. For many St. Lucians, their paychecks don't stretch like they used to. Meanwhile, the government has reduced subsidies on flour, making basic necessities harder to afford. And while they raise prices on you, they've removed 700 people from the public assistance list, leaving our most vulnerable families with no support. St. Lucia is paying the price for a government that refuses to care. How much more can we take? How many more sacrifices must we make while they mismanage our country's finances? It's time to fight back, to stand up for our families, our future, and our country. No more excuses, no more broken promises. We can't afford to stay silent. The high cost of living is suffocating us, but together we can make our voices heard. St. Lucia deserves better. Pierre Pabo.
Senator Lisa Joahir, who also serves as the communications director for the St. Lucia Labour Party, continues to blatantly lie and deceive St. Lucians. In a recent press brief, the SLP spokeswoman tried to deny that St. Lucia's agriculture sector declined by 17% in 2023. These are the facts according to the 2023 Social and Economic Review, a document prepared by the Ministry of Finance. On page 32, the opening paragraph reads, based on
Good morning and welcome to this week's United Workers' Party press briefing. And today I have members of the leadership of the United Workers' Party. In fact, we have the political leader and leader of the opposition, Prime Minister in waiting, the Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet, and we have with him his deputy, Dominic Fedee, the incoming parliamentary representative for ancillary canneries. And they will be speaking on some subjects this morning that are of pertinence and very high importance and priority to the people of St. Lucia. I will first call on Deputy Political Leader Dominic Fedee, who will begin to address us with his presentation on the topical issue of the St. Jude's Hospital, or is it building. I now present Mr. Dominic Fedee.
Thank you very much, Spider. Morning to everyone. St. Lucia, let's talk honestly, plainly, and loudly about something that has haunted this country for 15 years. A building in Vieux-Fort. A promise repeated so often, it now echoes like an old joke. A hospital that is somehow almost ready, except when the people desperately need it. Yes, I am talking about St. Jude's Hospital, or as this administration seems determined to rename it, the world-class Ghost. Because, let's be real, the Ghost will be enjoying the air conditioning long before the sick people enjoy health care. On September 9th, 2009, tragedy struck. A fire destroyed St. Jude's Hospital surgical wing. 3 patients died. In the chaos, the government relocated every medical service into the George Odlum Stadium. A stadium. A place built for sports and national events suddenly became a temporary hospital. And in St. Lucia, we all know that when the SLP government says temporary, they really mean permanent until election season needs a miracle. People in the South have now spent 15 years seeking medical care in the stands of a stadium. Yes, a stadium. 15 years of multiple governments, multiple contractors, and multiple millions of dollars disappearing inside a shell of disappointment that still cannot treat a broken toe. We have had rebuilt, redesigned, re-envisioned, rescoped, rebudgeted, restarted, everything except reopened. And now, with elections 2 weeks away, the St. Lucia Labour Party and Prime Minister Philippe decided to perform a national magic trick. A handing over ceremony on November 16th. For what, you may ask? A hospital that is not a hospital, no commissioning, no medical gases, no operating theaters, no pharmacy, no wards, no patients, no equipment, no staff, no license. But sure, the kitchen is lovely, the laundry is spotless, the mortuary is shining, and the administrative office air conditioning is blowing colder than the government's empathy. I am sure the Ghost will enjoy the facilities first, but let's us address the elephant in the room, or rather the lion who acts like a kitten, Prime Minister Philippe. This is the same man who told St. Lucians repeatedly that he would deliver a hospital within his term. Now suddenly he claims he never said that. So let us ask Mr. Prime Minister, if you never promised to open the hospital, then what exactly have you been pretending to build for 4 years? A museum? A monument? $1 billion Airbnb for Ghost? And more importantly, can St. Lucians walk into St. Jude's after November 16th for treatment? Yes or no? Simple. Because you cannot hold a grand ceremony on the 16th of November and then continue construction on the 17th of November and expect people not to notice the lie. That cannot hold. That's not on. How do you hand over a completed building that needs more construction the next day? How? How is that possible? How on earth can someone conceive such a scheme? Make it make sense, as they say in local parlance. Let me educate the government. Although they already know this, a real handing over ceremony means the building is finished. Yes, finished. All systems work. It passes inspections. It is safe to operate. It can legally receive patients. That's what a handing over means. That's what the completion of a building means. And for a hospital, the standards are even stricter. Certified medical gas systems, sterilization and HVAC, ICU, ER operating theater fully equipped, pharmacy operational, staff trained and assigned, Ministry of Health approval, commissioning team certification. None, let me repeat, none of this exists. None. None. Zero. But they hope you won't ask the right questions. The biggest insult of all, though, this ceremony is not for progress. This is not for healthcare. This is not for the people. It is simply an election strategy. That's the biggest insult. A show, a gimmick, an act, simply a lie. A national performance starring your taxpayer dollars. They believe you won't understand. They believe you won't check. They believe you won't ask a question. They believe you won't read. They believe you won't think. They believe St. Lucians will clap for anything once the stage is big enough. But let me remind them, St. Lucians are not foolish, not blind, not illiterate, not naive. We are tired of political circus acts disguised as construction updates. They proudly say laundry, kitchen, mortuary, admin offices. What a joke. What an absolute joke. They tell us that the physiotherapy are complete. But answer me this. Who is the kitchen cooking for? What linens are the laundry washing? Whose bodies is in the mortuary preparing? Whose files are admin offices filing? St. Lucians don't need air conditioning in an empty building. St. Lucians need healthcare. Healthcare. For 15 years, the people of the South have been treated like afterthoughts. They have waited in heat, in pain, in discomfort, and in fear. Babies born in stadiums, surgeries delayed, emergencies turned into tragedies. And now, on the eve of elections, the government offers them an incomplete building instead of a hospital, a ceremony instead of care, a lie instead of leadership. Prime Minister Philippe is now stuttering to the nation, boasting about a promise delivered. What a joke. Imagine that. A man who cannot deliver a functioning hospital is suddenly delivering slogans. He stands on platforms congratulating himself for finishing what is not finished, while the people who actually need medical care cannot get a Panadol inside the world-class building. St. Lucia, you deserve better. Not excuses. Not excuses. You deserve better. Not ceremonies. Not political stage shows. Not ghost houses. Not leaders who swear they never said that after 4 years of promises. Hold them accountable. Ask the hard questions. Demand real answers. November 16th has come and gone. Ask them again. Can I get health care here at St. Jude's tomorrow? If the answer is no, then the ceremony is a con, a trick, a betrayal. This country deserves a real hospital, not a stadium, not a construction site, and certainly not a billboard for re-election. St. Lucia, demand better. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dominic Fedee. And you heard from Mr. Fedee the situation as exists with the St. Jude's building that is incomplete, the hospital that is far from being commissioned, and all the lies and the deceit that we are being fed instead of the delivery of what we were promised. I would now like to call on the political leader, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, who will also speak on the subject as well as other matters that are related. I present to you the Honorable Alan Chastanet.
Good morning, members of the media and also citizens of St. Lucia. With elections days away, the SLP has rushed to stage a handover to create the illusion of delivery of a facility that remains closed as we speak, unfinished and non-operational. On Sunday, as we all know, there was a handover ceremony. This morning, St. Jude's is still closed. One big event later, and hundreds of thousands of dollars, a pattern of behavior that we are seeing all throughout this election period of taxpayers' monies being used to host events in New York City, a town hall meeting under the guise of the government of St. Lucia, 5 ministers who attended, people wearing red shirts. And you have to ask yourself, who paid for the airfares and the hotel stay for those ministers? Who paid for the venue? And I'm sure that on December 2nd, the new United Workers' Party will be able to tell the people of St. Lucia what the truth is. Back to St. Jude's. We now know that since this government has come in, that they have spent in excess of $300 million on St. Jude's. We know this by the way of a loan that was provided by the Saudis of 200 million EC dollars. And we saw in the budget that the government had allocated a total of $265 million. We also know that the contractor, Reno Gajada, months ago, commissioned at his expense and under his supervision a report on the update of St. Jude's. And we will all remember his own words. The first thing that he revealed was that they were trying to get the hospital open as quickly as possible. And as such, they were flying equipment in instead of shipping it because there was a sense of urgency. He went as far as to tell us that they had spent so much money on shipping, on flying the equipment in through British Airways, that he could have bought British Airways. He went on to say that the urgency of opening up St. Jude's should not be constrained by the cost, and that the need to open up the hospital was more important at this point than the money. Your money. A contractor spending your money. Up until today, we have no accounting of what has been spent at St. Jude's. We only know that the Saudi loan was for 200 million, and we know that the government had said that the total amount was going to be 265 million. So if you take Kenny Anthony's statement on Sunday, where he attempted to give an accurate history of what had taken place, he agreed that between him and Stephenson King, they had spent something like $147 million on the old St. Jude's. So that means we're talking in excess of $450 million would have been spent by successive labor administrations on an 80-year-old building. The distinction is that under my administration, we'd made the decision based on a report that cost $1 million to proceed to build a new building. And the irony is that the only buildings that are ready, that they claim are ready, are the buildings that we built. The dialysis lab, the rehabilitation lab, the cafeteria, the administrative room, and the laundry. So $300 million has been spent so far, and that's approximation because we've not gotten a complete number from them. And 4 years have passed. Today, 0 patients can be treated. In fact, we saw later on Sunday, the Prime Minister gave an excuse for Richard Federick having to leave early because he was not feeling well. Well, if he was on the site, why didn't Richard check himself in to the new St. Jude's and take advantage of the state-of-the-art that they claim that have claimed? Maybe the state-of-the-art cafeteria or the state-of-the-art office, the state-of-the-art laundry room. Why didn't he check in? St. Jude's, as we speak, again, cannot serve a single patient. No lives can be saved. St. Jude's is still not open to the public. So I want to reiterate, what the people of St. Lucia witnessed on Sunday was not the opening of a hospital. It was the latest chapter in a pattern of deception that has defined this administration. Secrets, lies, and propaganda. For 4.5 years, that is all the public of St. Lucia has been fed. I restate, as Kenny Anthony said on Sunday, and I quote him, "This has turned out to be the most expensive public sector project ever undertaken in this country. And this tells us everything that is wrong about politics in this country." End of quote. As of November 16th, 2025, St. Jude's has no emergency room, no pharmacy, no maternity services, no surgical theaters, no diagnostic suites, no inpatient beds. Only office space, a kitchen, and a laundry. That is what your $300 million, taxpayers' money, has delivered so far. Even more worrying, as a former Minister of Finance, I would well know that before you opened up St. Jude's, you would have had to present an operating budget. No such budget has been prepared. None of us have been told how the government is going to fund the operations at St. Jude's. I think it's well known that the financing model that exists for the old St. Jude's, where it's a subvention from the government of $18 million, won't work. So how is the new St. Jude's operation being absorbed into government's operating expenses? We also can go by what we're seeing at OKEU. I'm told the paternity ward in shambles. Maintenance of the building in shambles. They can't process enough patients. There's not enough beds. Equipment is already breaking down. And in fact, in the words of the Medical and Dental Association of St. Lucia, things have never been worse. And in fact, they warned the government, warned them that there was not a substantial change in the operations of OKEU. Doctors and nurses from St. Lucia would be resigning, of which they have. So here it is, you cannot even operate an existing hospital in St. Lucia. And you want to come and convince people in St. Lucia that you have a hospital ready in the south? And as I said, to add insult on injury, that the St. Lucia Medical and Doctors Association was deliberately excluded from a hospital handover. Can you imagine? Think about that. The very people who would have operated this facility, who are in charge of saving lives, are not even extended the courtesy of an invitation. Why? Because they would ask the questions the government refuses to answer. The same SLP government that refused to invite doctors to St. Jude's handover because they didn't want medical professionals exposing the truth is today suddenly offering doctors election season hush money in the form of honorariums and a tax credit. I want to remind us that there was a budget that ended in May of 2025, and that budget is to outline what the government's programs would be for the year. Making people permanent staff, giving bonuses, honorariums, tax credits were never included in the budget. These things are simply coming up because it is elections. They hid from the doctors when it was time to tell the truth. But remembered them instantly when it was time to influence their votes. What's worse is this. Workmen are still on site, still trying to finish the job, but they've been banned from using their phones, no photos, no videos. But in addition to that, I am proud of the fact that when we were in government and we were building the new building, it was a local contractor and local workers that were doing the work on the new St. Jude's building. When this administration came in and decided to go back to the old building, they literally have given carte blanche to Reno Gujada and CIE, who were also given waivers on bringing in foreign workers. The information that's coming to us that over 200 foreign workers have been working for the last 3 to 4 years on the site. And all of the St. Lucian workers were sent home. But to add insult on injury, this week, days before opening up or doing the handover of the so-called hospital building, that they're rushing to bring young people in from View Fort and the nearby constituencies to come and cut the grass and sweep the floors. This is really how this government feels about the people. Remember, they said the workers of St. Lucia are lazy, they're incompetent, and every time that they've had to defend St. Lucian workers, they've not done so. We've seen it with several projects in St. Lucia where those investors have been given carte blanche, waivers on work permits, waivers on fees of work permits to bring in foreign workers. If the hospital was truly ready, why would the government be afraid to have people take photographs? And let's remember, on the handing over ceremony, no one was given a tour of the property. No St. Lucian knows firsthand for themselves what's inside the 80-year-old building. If the building was truly ready, why is it being treated like a secret? Why are there no tours, no media walkthroughs, no chance for the people to see the inside for themselves? You only hide a building when you know it cannot stand up to scrutiny. This is not an isolated incident. This is how the SLP operates. Let me remind you the facts about St. Jude's and what they want you to forget. In 2021, the United Workers' Party built a brand new world-class, fit-for-purpose St. Jude's building, meaning that the design of the building from the bottom up was always meant to be a hospital. And we took the best-in-class hospitals in this region and modeled that hospital after them. We never once claimed that a building alone meant a hospital was open. We never staged a show. We never misled the public. We never pretended that changing which ministry was responsible equaled delivering the health care. So what did we see? They said that they've handed over from the contractor to a ministry, and that somehow signifies some milestone. And we all know that the contractor is going to have to continue working there because they're far from being finished. But in 2021, the SLP promised to reopen St. Jude's within their first year in office. That promise is now 4 years overdue. They said all it was going to do was take chemical and some paint to complete. In fact, Kenny Anthony repeated that nonsense on Sunday, talking about that when he left in 2016, it was only going to take $30 million to complete. That's a lie. The letter that was written to him by the PS of Economic Development in April of 2016 told him they cannot finish it by the summer, and it was going to take more than another $100 million to complete the building. And we now know, because I didn't touch the building when we were in office, so they got it the way they left it. They've now spent 4.5 years and $300 million more, and they still have not been able to complete it. Time has a way of revealing the truth. Now, conveniently, on the eve of elections, they stage a public relations handover to claim delivery of a facility that remains closed, unfinished, and non-operational. This follows a familiar SLP pattern. Fool people before elections, fail to deliver, fake events to distract people, and mask the failure. And St. Jude's is not an anomaly. It is a repeat of how the government operates across every sector of this country. They've saddled us with the highest debt in our nation's history. Remember, the economy of St. Lucia contracted, in my term, only because of COVID. Pre-COVID, we had 3 years of successive growth rates and keeping the additional debt lower than the growth rate. $100 million a year. So by 2019, we had only added $300 million to the debt of this country. COVID in 2020, when the economy collapsed because the whole world shut down. Let's not forget that. Not because of any policy of our government. The world shut down. Tourism couldn't make it. That our economy contracted by 20%. Let us also not forget that it was my administration that adopted the philosophy of coexist with COVID and reopened our doors and bringing tourism back early so that we could have a faster recovery. It was the then leader of the opposition, today's prime minister, who said I was a madman to believe that tourism would come back. Only Alan Chastanet could believe, I quote, that tourism could make a recovery. And yet today, this is the same government that wants to tout the success in tourism, doesn't want to acknowledge the work that we did in helping a faster recovery of our economy. So the 12% growth in 2021 and the growth, the 20%, the 18% growth in 2022 was on the backs of the work that we did. Do construction, fix roads while people were not driving on the roads, while kids were not going to school. Take advantage of that opportunity. And at the same time, create jobs for people. Get the hotels going. Build confidence in the country. You find that success model. You stop the airport. You stop the hospital. You stop the housing developments. You stop road projects. You stopped DSH. You stopped Cabot. They have presided over the highest cost of living in St. Lucia has ever faced, with groceries costing twice what they did in 2019. Yet they talk about a VAT-free day. This government is behaving like a mafia, a crime family. They're extorting money from the people of this country every day by imposing the 2.5% levy, by allowing gas prices to remain high, by not subsidizing cooking gas more than they were, by allowing bus fares to go up, by allowing the cost of bread to go up, and not doing anything to abate inflation coming into our country. In fact, facilitating it. Every day that you're paying the 2.5% levy, they're taking money from your pocket. Every day that you have to pay more for gas, they're taking money from your pockets. That is what this government is doing. They're extorting money from you. And any time that anyone in this country has attempted to point out the wrong and point out what is right, this government has gone out of its way to intimidate them, to prevent them from speaking, in order to push the narrative, life is good. But we all know the difference because they can't hide the truth from the people. You're the ones who are paying the higher gas prices. You're the ones paying the VAT. You're the ones having to pay a higher bus fare every day. You're the ones having to pay the higher cost for bread every day coming out of your pocket. So the government can't fool the people anymore. They've overseen the highest murder rate in our history. And when St. Lucians demand a plan, they tell us not to politicize crime. And they deliver to the police, it's computers and corruption. All they have delivered to the police is computers and corruption. Not a crime plan, not an insurance benefits, nothing that actually keeps our people safe. They came in, we had 3 canine dogs, 3 canine units here, sorry. And they sent them off. And they had to create an excuse. They said, we're having scanners, and the scanners will replace the dogs, the canine units. It's not true. You need both. Luckily, the French agreed to give us a canine dog. They couldn't even take care of the canine unit. And he was killed. Up to today, 4 months later, no answers. Not one answer. Not one. There's been no improvement in strengthening in the border control. The traffic unit has been active, but not coordinated. The CCTV cameras that were left, I've heard that more than half of them are not working. We've not heard about one crime being solved because of the CCTV cameras. So the CCTV cameras are there to facilitate the police so they could be more proactive and to make sure that we can be stronger in law enforcement. I ask all of us, do we see a pattern of behavior? Grand announcements, partial actions, shoddy work, and the people end up paying the price. UDP demands transparency and accountability. This Labour government must, one, provide a verified opening date when doctors, nurses, and patients will actually occupy the use of the facility, not giving us a building. When is the hospital going to be operational, and how much is it going to cost up until that point, and how much is it going to cost to operate it, and where is the money going to come from? Release the full operational readiness report so solutions can know when the patients will finally receive care at St. Jude. You said that you were bringing in a Canadian company to certify the hospital. 4.5 years. Have they ever done a press conference? Have they ever given us an update on where the certification is? In fact, did that ever even happen, Mr. Prime Minister? Disclose the true total cost to date, including all loans, consultancies, and overruns. It was not until we won the election in 2016 that we actually were able to see the mess that Kenny Anthony left in St. Jude's. Left hand did not know what the right hand was doing. There was never a vision plan as to what St. Jude's was going to look like. All they were doing was spending money. That's it. The roof was replaced 3 times at St. Jude's. There's a burial ground by the Heineken factory behind the gas station of all the concrete, of all the mistakes that were made, and they buried it. And if it had not been for United Workers' Party coming into office, none of us would have been any wiser as to what was taking place at St. Jude's. Account for the $200 million loan. How much remains to rehabilitate the George Odlum Stadium, as the Prime Minister solemnly promised? For 16 years, the people of the South have waited for proper health care. The people of St. Lucia have been forced into the longest waiting room in our history. I want to remind us, a building is not a hospital. A ceremony does not constitute care, and ribbons do not heal the sick. I know, and all of us know, that St. Lucians will not be fooled anymore. We see this for what it is: pure political games designed to trick the electorate. Our people have waited long enough. Our people have been patient long enough. Our people deserve better than this deception of secrets, lies, and propaganda. Our people deserve quality health care. Our people deserve the truth. And our people deserve a government that delivers results, not just ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Political Leader. As you heard, both the Deputy Political Leader, Mr. Dominic Fedee, and the Honorable Alan Chastanet spoke extensively on the situation at St. Jude's. We are at this juncture now where I believe the people of the South and the people of St. Lucia, by extension, have gotten to the point where we feel that it is too much noise for the sick. You either put up or shut up. The government of St. Lucia has not been able to deliver on their promise, and contrary to the continuous lies coming from the Prime Minister, who says that he did not promise a hospital, he promised a building, I ask, a building what for? Well, I want to remind you, sir, that we have on record ministers in your cabinet. The Minister of Health, in a statement, said the hospital would be delivered and commissioned this year. Emma Hippolyte said early in your term that you would deliver the hospital completed and commissioned in 1 year. And Sean Edward also said that the hospital would be completed and delivered during this term. You have failed on all counts. You did not deliver it in 1 year. You did not deliver it this year. You did not deliver it this term. You have failed as far as that is concerned. And that is a hospital that you called for. Your political party, your political organization called for the completion of that hospital years ago. Because according to one of your members of cabinet, Alpha Baptiste, all that was needed was a coat of paint and some chemical. And it took you more than 4 years. Until this point, you have not been able to come up with the coat of paint nor the chemical. You are a colossal failure, just as you were with crime, just as you were in handling the cost of living in this country, and just as you are generally across the board when it comes to healthcare. You are a disaster, and you fit the description that we got from the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association. But for the political leader, we had one question that came in, which says that you made reference to a pattern of behavior by the government of St. Lucia, the SLP administration, in terms of how they handle various issues taking place in the country and how those issues are politicized. Apart from St. Jude's, are there other areas that are of concern to you and your party in terms of the handling of the government?
Thank you for the question. I think that St. Jude's is representative of a pattern of behavior that we've seen continuously over the last 4.5 years with this government. This government has refused to be direct, transparent, and to hold themselves accountable for anything in this country. If we start with the halls of justice, up to today, we don't know what the cost of the halls of justice was. We don't know why the government would have chosen not to allow the NIC to fund the halls of justice, so that NIC could be making money for its pensioners. And NIC would have given the state, and as it always does, a interest rate that is competitive. It's been left to speculation. We hear the building is going to cost $150 million, but we hear that the financing charges for the 12 years is going to be another $150 million, means the building is going to cost $300 million. As you remember, they were supposed to put the building on Constitution Park. They said they had all their planning approvals, but all of a sudden they aborted that plan after they had already mobilized, meaning they already had equipment and everything was ready to go on that site. They aborted it. Who paid for that? They then went and acquired land because it was private sector land where the old Gaiety Theater was, the Jude building, the lands. We know that land cost $1,000 a square foot in St. Lucia. That's what the market value is. That's well documented. 37,000 square feet means $37 million. Who is paying for the $37 million to buy the building? Is that included in the cost? Is the cost gone up now? Or is that a cost that the government of St. Lucia and the people of St. Lucia have to bear? We don't know. Up until now, we don't know. Taxpayers' money. You want to go and pretend, and that's where you see the secrets, the lies, and the propaganda repeat itself. To come up with a story, oh, by the end of the 12 years, the developer is going to hand the building back over for $1. You really believe that people are going to believe that? The taxpayers of this country will be paying for that building through the rent. And the rent is going to be in excess of $16 a square foot. That's double the price of the highest rate we currently pay. That is how the people of St. Lucia are going to repay. Don't come and talk about $1. HIA Airport The design was completed. The financing had already been done. Are you telling me all the people, OECC, SLASPA, the banks, World Bank, everybody did not assess as to what the cost was going to be before they agreed on a loan? You want to come and tell us about cost overruns? You said there was cost overruns on the piling. Not true. That's been proven wrong. But to today, what do we know? You stopped the airport. You can't finish the control tower. You got rid of OECC. No information to the general public on what was going to be the largest capital project in the history of St. Lucia. More secrets, more lies, more propaganda. CIP, you made amendments at the hotel to go from 1,000 files, which could be up to 4,000 passports, and increased it to 6,000 files, up to 24,000 passports. In your own contract, you amended it so that the administrative fee that the state was supposed to get, you gave it to them in the form of commissions. Up to today, you've not provided an audit of the escrow account. You want to tell us that the money goes into the escrow account, doesn't belong to the state? We know it doesn't belong to the state, but the reason why it goes into the escrow account is for the state to have eyes and to account for the money, to make sure the money is being spent on the hotel. You cannot play the people of this country for fools. You keep evading any level of accountability. You then went and put in another project, the infrastructure project. You give them another 6,000 files, another 24,000, so that means 48,000 passports. You gave them $600 million, and they were supposed to give $100 million US in infrastructure program. You have billboards all around the place talking about how CIP is benefiting us. Where's been the accountability? Where's been the report? An audit report of CIP unit, you cannot even provide that on a timely basis. All the monies that have gone into the economic fund, the CIP monies, you change it so any project that the cabinet approved, but more importantly, you're required to have done an audit every year. The 4.5 years you've been in government, you have never provided an audit. CIP, secrets, lies, and more propaganda. No truth. GPH, I was in the House, I said, you sold the port for $1, you denied it. I provided the factual evidence of the lease that was registered, that you leased the land to GPH for 30 years, and with an extension, another 10, for $1 a year. And you allows them to use that land as collateral. Explain myself. There was an NIC loan that SLASPA had. You took that away and you moved the loan to the Bank of St. Lucia. And instead of having to provide a government guarantee, you allowed them to use the land as collateral so that if the project goes belly up, the Bank of St. Lucia will claim the port as its asset. The Ministry of Finance wrote a letter saying, do not do the deal with GPH. Don't do it. It's better for government to forego its $2.50 and give it to SLASPA. So SLASPA would be earning the $5 and $1.50 to solid waste. And with that extra $2.50, SLASPA would be able to do everything that GPH was going to do. Boardwalk, extend the dock, build vendors, arcades, fix up Banan's land. All those things are within the capacity of St. Lucia. So why would you have given away the $10? You can't even admit now publicly it's $10. You've never made the contract available to the people of this country. You've never reported what the good deal is. I know that if it's a great deal, you're going to be transparent. You're going to be celebrating it. More secrets, lies, and propaganda. NLA, you came to the House, got a government guarantee for NLA to borrow $80 million. We made the point. NLA does not have the capacity to oversee the issuance of contracts. You didn't listen, but I see you came to the House in October with an amendment to the Public Procurement Act that all statutory agencies are required now by law to meet that standard. But meanwhile, where is the $80 million? When they asked the minister who the contractor is, he said he couldn't remember the name. And it turned out the name of the person was his cousin. The same cousin that's also doing work for him on his own personal properties. How do you want the public not to connect that dot? That you had no money, and all of a sudden you give a cousin a contract, and next thing you're buying land? Who cannot make that connection? Is that not a fair presumption to make? And if it's not correct, come out and show us who got the contracts, what bidding process was put in, and what projects did they do, so people of St. Lucia can determine whether they got value for money. You criticized Don Lockerbie. You knew that Don Lockerbie did not get $33 million. Don Lockerbie's contract was for $2 million. And that was to provide the designs and the oversight of a $30 million investment. Soufriere, football track, lights. Miku, Deriso, Miku playing field, Denry playing field, and Groselet Academy. $30 million. But yet you claim that you spent $40 million on the Darren Sammy Stadium? Who do you think you're fooling? More secrets, lies, and propaganda. And even more importantly, the money that was going into the NLA, which was to support youth programs, scholarships, sporting programs, national teams. $1 million a month for the next 15 years has been lost. So much so, they drain the NLA so much, they now have to get government funds to fund an entity that was funding itself. Make that make sense. Health. Up to now, you can't tell us how you're going to pay for the new St. Jude's. You can't even tell us how you're paying for the old OKEU. We see it for ourselves, insufficient beds, the fact that we're supposed to be decentralizing and strengthening our rural health areas. Where's the money coming from? You want to come and tell us about universal health care? And the first thing that you want to do is to bring in a universal health care authority? That's all the SLP knows how to do, is to create jobs for the boys at the expense of the people. Give you a fancy name, a fancy organization. But it has no money to actually do the work it's supposed to do. Instead of taking the Medical and Dental Association seriously, you played politics with them. You went after the president, called her a Zelev. Not my words, your words. And those comments were made on a platform in front of the Prime Minister, who does not want to take any accountability for what was said. National security, more lies, secret lies and propaganda. You handpick a person, jumps 4 ranks to become the deputy commissioner, embroiled in a sex scandal. Instead of allowing an independent investigation, you did everything to quash those investigations, including what I understand, the information that I have, intimidating those witnesses. What happened to Tyson? Secret lies and propaganda. You know how Tyson died. I know how Tyson died. When are you going to reveal to the public of St. Lucia the truth? Cost of living. We warned you not to implement the health and security levy, but you wanted from day one to increase the VAT rate. And that was a palatable way in your mind because of health crisis and the security crisis. And you know that none of that money went to health and security, not 1 cent. You allowed the gas prices to go to $17.50. You would know that when you did that, that the bus drivers would demand an increase in fares. When you allowed cooking gas prices to go up past a certain point, it was going to have an impact on the bakers, and the price of bread would go up. And we've said that once you've allowed the price of bus fares and also gas, cooking gas to go up, or you allowed the price of bread to go up, they're not coming back down, Mr. Prime Minister. That is going to be your legacy. The party that talks about bread. Something as sacred as that, embedded in your hearts and your soul, that you betrayed the people of this country and allowed the price of bread to go up. So when it comes to cost of living, this government, again, secrets, lies, and propaganda. And so St. Jude's is just another example to the extent that this government is prepared to go and lie. To lie is to deliberately deceive the people of this country, to betray the people of this country. And that's why I have to end by saying that this is the behavior of a criminal family. Extort money from the people, intimidate people, and to break the law. When you don't do what is required by law, you are a law breaker. And that's what this government is. And the only way that we could make sure that we get controls on the Hall of Justice, that we find out what is going on at HIA, whether in fact that this government wants to sell the airport. The only way we can get back our monies from the CIP, billions of dollars. The only way that we can amend or get rid of the GPH deal. The only way that we can replace the NLA money to give it back to the young peoples of this country. The only way that we can find a proper health policy system that's viable, healthcare insurance, put money back into the hospitals, put money back into the healthcare centers. The only way that we're going to be able to bring back security in this country is the plan the United Workers' Party has, that we've outlaid in our SOS program. And the only way that we're going to resolve the cost of living issues is what we've put in the SOS. This vote at this election, there's nothing and never been any time that's more important in the history of St. Lucia. Because if the Labour Party were to come back into government, I can assure you, we will never know the truth about the halls of justice. More than likely, they will do a PPP with HIA Airport. We will never recover the money from CIP. We will never be able to fix or understand what has gone on with the GPH contract. The young people will never get their money back from NLA. We will never get a proper healthcare system because they cannot fund it. National security is going to remain a significant problem because the lawbreakers cannot also be the law enforcers. And cost of living is going to be a burden. I ask a simple question. In the last manifesto in 2021, when the Labour Party promised the middle class of this country that they would increase the threshold of non-taxable income to $4,000. Of which people got very excited. I understand. We knew that that was going to be an impossibility. But in 4.5 years, they have not done it. But I want to ask those same persons in the middle class, did you read anywhere in the manifesto of the Labour Party that they were going to increase that back by 2.5%? Did they tell you they were going to allow the price of gas to be the highest in the OECS? Did they tell you they weren't going to fix the healthcare system, so now instead of being able to depend on public health services, everybody is now being forced to go to private services? And those private services don't come free. In fact, they won't let you be admitted unless you've paid the money up front. Did they say those things to you when they were promising you the new tax threshold? No, they didn't. And that's why you cannot trust Labour. We couldn't trust them when they came in government in 1997 to 2006. They betrayed people's trust again between 2011 to 2016. And they have done even worse in this term of office. And that's why I'm asking all the people, all of us, who have not wanted to vote before, I remind you, there's no such thing as not voting. Whoever wins is who you voted for. This election is about these key issues. This election, I believe, is about the future of St. Lucia. They have no plan. 6 public meetings. What's the policies? Where are the plans? Where is the admission of what has gone well, what has gone wrong? You cannot continue to tell the people of St. Lucia everything that you've done has been perfect, because that's not true. Everybody sees it for themselves. So I want to say that the pattern of behavior that we see continuously of this government is secrets, lies, and propaganda. They never tell the truth to the people, and they cannot be trusted.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from our political leader, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, and his deputy, Dominic Fedee. I want to extend my thanks to the 2 presenters. I want to thank all of you who have joined in, who are viewing via live stream, whether in St. Lucia or in the diaspora. And I want to thank the members of the media for this. I may ask you to stay tuned and keep following the United Workers' Party. Join us on Thursday for Meet the Government in Waiting. That is the program that has replaced Meet the Opposition. And of course, remember that on Thursday, we have a major event in Soufrière where we will be presenting our manifesto at our national meeting. And on Sunday, we have another massive rally to rival what you saw on the boulevard in Lakai Dennery at level ground. So we expect to see you there, and please tune in to find out what is happening at your constituency level with your United Workers' Party candidate as they continue on the campaign trail with their meetings and events at the constituency level. We want to thank you. Stay tuned, and please remember to check that you are in fact registered, and find out at which polling station you'll be required to vote. Ensure that you come out on the 1st of December, bring your friends, bring your family, bring your neighbors, and ensure that they all do the right thing to play a part in ensuring that we right the wrong. On December 1st, come out and vote the United Workers' Party. I thank you.